Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're cracking open some classic folktales from 16th century India, but we're going to look at them through a totally modern lens. We'll see that these aren't just simple stories. They're actually incredible masterclasses in human psychology.
So, let's just kick things off with a big question, right? Can a court advisor from hundreds of years ago really teach us anything new about the human mind? Well, let's find out. We're heading to the court of the great Mughal Emperor Akbar, which you can almost think of as a real-life laboratory for human behavior. And our star psychologist, none other than his brilliant and incredibly witty advisor, Birbal.
All right, so first up, we're going to look at one of Birbal's greatest talents, his just unbelievable ability to reframe a problem. I mean, to see it in a way that literally nobody else could.
So the story goes like this. One day, Emperor Akbar draws a line on the floor, and then he throws out this seemingly impossible challenge to his entire court. He says, make this line shorter. But here's the catch. You cannot touch it or erase any part of it. And you can just imagine, the courtiers are completely stumped. I mean, how on earth are you supposed to do that?
And that's when Birbal steps forward. He doesn't touch Akbar's line at all. Instead, he just grabs some chalk and draws a brand new, longer line right next to it. And just like that, the emperor's original line is now the shorter one. Problem solved.
So what is going on here psychologically? I mean, this is a perfect, and I mean perfect, example of what modern psychology calls reframing. Birbal understood something fundamental. He didn't have to change the object. He just had to change the environment around it. This is a fantastic demonstration of the contrast effect. Our perception of something is always relative to what's next to it.
Okay, let's try another one of Akbar's brain teasers. These were designed to really push his court to their absolute limits. So he asks, tell me, how many crows are there in our entire kingdom? A completely impossible question, right?
So while everyone else is just silent, totally stumped, Birbal confidently blurts out a very specific number. And when the emperor, challenges him on it, Birbal gives this genius, totally airtight explanation. He says, well, if you count and there are more, it's because their relatives are visiting from other kingdoms. And if you count and there are fewer, well, some of our crows have just gone on vacation. He's got every single possibility covered.
You see, the key here isn't the number he gave, it's the thinking behind it. This is just a masterclass in what we call divergent thinking. Instead of getting stuck looking for a single logical answer that, let's be honest, doesn't exist, Birbal creates this flexible, creative story that just works no matter what the outcome is. It shows a really high tolerance for ambiguity, which is a huge sign of intelligence.
So where are we going with this? Well, Birbal wasn't just some big-picture thinker. No, he was an absolute master at understanding the internal psychology of individuals and, crucially, predicting how they would act. So get this. A merchant's house was robbed, and Birbal is on the case. He gives each of the suspected servants an identical stick. Then he tells them this brilliant lie. He says, these are magic sticks. Overnight, the stick belonging to the thief will grow by exactly 2 inches. So the next morning, how does he find his guy? It's simple. He just looks for the one servant whose stick is shorter than everyone else's.
So why did this work? Well, obviously there was no magic. The innocent servants, they slept like babies. But the guilty servant, he was just consumed by paranoia. He was so afraid his stick would grow that he cut 2 inches off of it to try and hide his crime. It's just a perfect example of how Birbal literally weaponized the thief's own guilt against him.
Birbal was also an expert at exposing flawed logic, even when it came from the emperor himself. In one famous story, a poor man wins a huge reward by surviving a night in a freezing cold lake. His secret? He just focused his mind on a distant lamp in the palace. But Akbar denies the reward, using this really illogical argument that the man cheated by using the lamp's heat.
So the very next day, Birbal sets up this perfect, real-world demonstration. He hangs a pot of food about 5 feet above a tiny little flame and invites the emperor to come watch it cook. And when Akbar just scoffs and says, that's ridiculous, it can't possibly cook from that far away, Birbal has him. He just points out the obvious absurdity. If food can't get hot from 5 feet away, how on earth can a man get warm from a lamp a mile away?
This amazing logical technique is known as reductio ad absurdum, which is just a fancy Latin phrase that means reduction to the absurd. By taking the emperor's bad argument to its most ridiculous conclusion, Birbal made the flaw completely impossible to ignore. And, it also points to something powerful. The man probably survived because of the hope from the light, kind of like a placebo effect, not from any physical heat.
So, okay, we've seen Birbal handle perception and individual psychology, but what happens to our behavior when we're part of a crowd, when we're all in it together? To test this very idea, Akbar announces a simple task for all his subjects. He says that every single citizen in the kingdom must pour just 1 cup of milk into the empty royal pool during the night, so by morning it would be completely full of milk. Now, here's the logic that went through pretty much every single person's head. Okay, the pool is going to be filled with thousands and thousands of cups of milk. If I just pour in 1 cup of water to save my milk, nobody will ever notice. It's just 1 cup. What's the big deal?
But when morning comes, the pool isn't full of milk. It's completely full of water. And this shocking result came from one simple, powerful fact. Every single person in the kingdom had the exact same selfish thought.
And this is just a chillingly powerful demonstration of a core principle in social psychology called diffusion of responsibility. See, when we're part of a large group, our personal sense of responsibility just plummets. We think, someone else will do it. It seems to be this deep-seated human thing. When everyone is responsible, nobody feels personally responsible. It's the exact same idea behind things you've probably heard of, like the bystander effect or social loafing.
Okay, so after going through all these ancient stories, what are the lessons for us today, right? How do we take these amazing insights from a 16th century court and actually apply them to our own modern lives?
What we're left with is this incredibly powerful psychological toolkit. So remember to reframe your problems. Sometimes the solution is just about changing the context. You got to practice divergent thinking when you feel like you're stuck. Understand that powerful emotions like guilt really do drive people's actions. And always, always be aware of how group dynamics can just water down our sense of personal responsibility.
So the big takeaway here is that these tales are so much more than just kids' stories. They are timeless, practical lessons in how the human mind actually works. And that leaves us with one last question to chew on. In your own life, which seemingly impossible line do you need to reframe?